Hello YouTube, this is Jessica Giaquinto. I am currently doing pre-orders for my debut novel, Stand Up Fight Back, which is due to be published December 3rd. And I wanted to do this video just as a meet the cast, as I said way back when, to a previous video that was on my computer. But I wanted to do a meet the cast for Stand Up Fight Back so that you can meet the whole cast, not just the main character, Piper. So that's what the situation with this video is. So I'm going to be having all of the pictures show up here, so that's why I'm kind of standing off to the side. And I'm going to start off again with Piper, who is our main character. And these are all pictures that I have found on a website. I will leave the link down below along with the credit for the picture. These are all free domain pictures that I've used on not only my website but also in this video, and I will put a link down in the description for where you can find them. Now, Piper is, as I said in the previous video, she's 17 years old. She is brand new to the School of Little Fiddle in Nevada, and she is my anxious little bunny. I actually originally had her be more like Nancy Drew, but when I had my first set of, people reading my book, they couldn't really figure out a personality for her. They thought she was very bland. And I'm like, well, duh, I made her basically a bland character. So that's when I went back to the drawing board and I basically built her as someone who would be very much like I was when I was in high school. So she's very anxious, she's very unsure of her own voice, and she is just a delight to write because she's fun to write because she has so much growth that she can go through. And I think you need a lot of growth when you're a main character. Now, onto the second character you actually meet in the story, chronologically, is Piper's father, Lloyd. Now, Lloyd is obviously her father. He is a newspaper reporter, and he moves Piper down to Nevada from New York after he gets divorced from Julia, Piper's mother. And I originally conceptualized that he would be a very loving father, someone who is always there for you, but is still a bit of a stern father. And when I had a friend read him, she's like, I don't like him. He's very, old-fashioned. And I was like, are we reading the same character? So I was very confused by this until I actually reread it, and I'm like, oh, now I kind of see what she's meaning, so I need to fix him. So he's now become one of my favorite adult characters because the majority of the characters are teenagers. But he's one of the few adult characters that I really do enjoy writing because he is torn between wanting to support Piper because she's never really put herself out there before, but also trying to protect her. So he's very fun to write. Now, onto the third character that you actually meet in the story. His name is Warren. Warren is by far the fan favorite for the people who have read this, and he is a Reaper. Now, in the story, they themselves don't call themselves Reapers, but for Piper's own sanity, he lets them call them Reapers. And they kind of just follow that. It's like, okay, well, if it makes you feel better to call us this, then whatever. So he is from the 1920s, and he was a hitman. And that is something that I have done extensive research on how the mafia worked, and he wasn't part of any particular family. He kind of just floated between families. And he was prolific in his job. And you'll see basically how prolific he was during the book. And he is such a polar opposite. He's such a juxtaposition of Piper because he's cocky, he's aggressive, he's arrogant, and he pushes Piper so much more than anyone she's ever encountered. And I like that back and forth. And when I was first thinking of this novel, I didn't want there to be a normal romance. Because normally when you have two people of opposite genders, who are forced to work together in a situation, 9 times out of 10, they become a couple. But in this instance, he's dead. She's alive. He's been dead since the 20s, so he's over 90 years old. So, suffice it to say, the age gap is not really conducive to their relationship or his current status of being dead. So I didn't want there to be any romance between them, because I've personally seen, like, on Charmed, there was an episode where, also, Piper, had a little romance with a ghost. It was just one quick episode, but it was, I think, in season 1. Yeah. But to me, it felt very unfair and very unneeded. So I wanted to just make sure that that didn't happen, because I wanted him to be a good sounding board for her and someone who could teach her. It's like, hey, you are a spineless jellyfish and you need to stand up for yourself instead of just letting people walk all over you. And that's why I like Warren. Now, the next character you meet, the next 2 characters actually are introduced at the same time, but the first one you actually get their name with is Danny. I love Danny. Danny is a character that I had wanted to put in as, like, the medical person, because his mother is a surgeon at the hospital here. I mean, it's a small town. You're going to only have, like, one major surgeon there. And then his father is chief of police. So he's got both the medical and the lawful side of him. And I wanted to kind of have him there. But when I originally conceptualized him, he was very bland as well. I think I have this problem when I'm introducing new characters, that they tend to be very bland until I actually hash them out. And he became one of my favorites because he's so gung-ho about following in his mom's path of going to medical school, and then all hell breaks loose, and he's actually forced to do a little bit of what he's gonna be in for, and it scares him to pieces. He does not know how to handle that. So it's very fun to write him. And he's actually one of the main focuses of the next book. So I wanted to bring a lot of that early in this book. So that's why there's a lot of information about him and his family in this one, which is leading up to the second one. Now, the next one that's actually featured is Sadie. Now, her full name is Sandrine, but everyone calls her Sadie for short. And I literally thought of her before I thought of the main character, because it's like, I want a glamazon. And I created her. And I love her bubbliness. She's very happy. She rarely ever has a very serious moment. I kind of liken her to, if anyone's ever seen Barbie Life in the Dream House, she's a lot like Barbie. She's very positive outlook, positive energy, positive. She is just like bolt of rays sunshine. So she rarely lets things really get to her, and when they do, they affect her really bad. So I liked that part of her. And when I first thought about her, I'm like, she is a lesbian. She is open about who she is. She is like, hello world, I am me. And I love her confidence in that. And I wanted to introduce her in that way, because she is very kind, she is very loyal, she is compassionate. So that's why I wanted to create her this way, because of the fact that Piper basically doesn't have a good female role model in her life. And Sadie's going to become very, very important to Piper later on. And I wanted Piper to instantly attach to her, because it's like she's so needing of female empowerment. And that's basically why I created Sadie that way. Now, the next characters that I have here, I do have a couple of side characters that are featured, that will be featured more prominently. But the next one that I wanted to talk about is another Reaper. He is actually the head of what is called the Intake Reapers. Now, again, that is for Piper's benefit, not really what they call themselves. But his name is Lazarus. Now, if anyone remembers, the name Lazarus is from the Bible. And that's not just because it sounds cool, because it does. It sounds like a really cool name. But it's because of his counterpart in the other Reapers, because while Lazarus is part of the Intake Reapers, there's another Reaper that handles the distribution. And you'll see what the actual difference is between them in the book. I don't want to let that kind of thing out of the bag. But Lazarus became one of my favorites because I modeled him, at least the air around him, from one of my favorite games, Persona 5, and all the Persona games, because he's actually in all of them, off of Igor. And I loved the type of feeling that you got around him. He's always got what I do describe as a insidious grin. So it's almost Joker-like, but he's not malicious. He's actually a very jovial person, but that grin is what sets people kind of on edge. It's like, I don't know if you're being serious or if you're joking. So I wanted that kind of difference in him. When my husband's boss actually read about Lazarus, he's like, he's the antagonist. And I'm like, no. He's not, I promise. He's not. He's just very kind of creepy. And I like that. I like that he's actually more helpful to Piper than Warren is, which is amazing, because normally the boss wouldn't dirty himself with such trivial things, but he actually helps her out way more. Now, the next one I wanted to talk about, these are just the main ones that show up very frequently, but I might talk about the other ones later on. I might. But the next one I wanted to talk about definitely were a set of twins, Carson and Eli. Now, Carson I'm going to talk about him first because he is the oldest brother. He is my aggressive little child. He is older by about a minute and a half or so. I haven't exactly figured out how long they were apart before they were finally born together. But he is very protective. When he finds something that he likes or that he has a connection to, he is protective. He will guard it with his life as long as he has breath. And that stems from his very hostile home life. When I first started thinking about him, I was honestly torn because I didn't want him to come off as the stereotypical bad boy. He is smart. No one gives him the credit that he really deserves because of his attitude. He doesn't care for authority because his father has basically ruined that for him. But he is my protective little baby. He protects Piper with everything he had. And when I was writing scenes with them, I could see how a romance between them could blossom. But again, his protective personality would more lend itself to being a brother figure instead of a boyfriend material. Now, the next one I wanted to talk about is Eli, Carson's twin brother. Now, he's the younger twin, and I dub him the sweeter twin. He is very quiet. He is also very protective, but not in the aggressive way that Carson is. And he was actually an enigma for me for a long time, and I couldn't figure him out. Like, I could figure out Carson. He was basically a lot of bluster with very little upkeep for it. And when I finally figured out Eli, he made so much more sense. He's kind of what I would think of as a jack of all trades, master of none. And he is smarter than Carson, but he doesn't let that on because he knows that if he were to actually do something about it, he would probably be separated from Carson and put into accelerated classes versus being in regular classes with his brother. one thing that really popped up for me when I was trying to conceptualize Eli up until recently, I couldn't figure him out. Because normally I think about, it's like, okay, if I were going to write just a pure romance with him, who would I pair him with in this universe? And I couldn't think of anyone. I couldn't think of a person that he would want to be in an intimate relationship with. And that's when I kind of had the spark of idea. It's like, he's asexual. He doesn't have sexual feelings towards people. He can still have romantic ones, but he's very selective on who he would give that kind of power to. Because he's already got a lot of power invested in Carson and his protectiveness. But who he would choose to actually be in a relationship with would have to be someone that he trusted. Someone that is not going to hurt him, is not going to belittle him like his father has, and just treat him with the respect that he deserves. And I felt so much connection with his character by the time I finished with that, and I'm like, oh my god, my last remaining child, you finally came to me. I was so happy. But that's it for the main cast. The side characters that I have here, I have 2 more Reapers. They are also twins, Irene and Elise. Irene they're actually polar opposites of each other, like completely. Like versus Carson and Eli, who are very similar in a lot of what they do, along with their appearance. Irene and Elisa are as different could be. Irene is very cold, she's very calculating, and almost to the point of being unfriendly. And she is even more fiercely protective of her sister than Carson is of Eli. And Elisa is, if you've ever seen those firework pop bottles where you pull the string and it makes confetti fly everywhere, that is Elisa. She is pop rocks and Coke. And that's what she acts like. She is always very happy. And she's always into mischief. She's always getting into trouble. But she's also very caring of her sister Irene. Of course, they're not main characters currently. They're just side characters, but I felt like I needed to kind of describe them. Now, the other 2 side characters are only featured a couple of times. It's Danny's mother, Kimberly, and his father, Oliver. And they're featured right here. They are instrumental. Well, Oliver is instrumental towards the end, and Kimberly is instrumental in the beginning, because that's how you find out about her job and everything. And I didn't get to really know their characters, because of course they're not main characters, until I did the bios on my website, which I'll put the link down in the description where you can find them. And I fell in love with these 2, because I fell in love with the backstory that they gave, that I was able to bring to them. Because up until now, they were basically just cookie-cutter parents that it's like, most YA novels have. It's like, they have a face, they're basically cardboard cutouts. But these 2, I just grew to love because of their backstories. And again, you can find them all on my website. And I have I have one other one, but I'm leaving that one to a video all on his own, because he is super, 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 super important. And I worked hard on him. And that is my antagonist, Charon. Now, if anyone has heard the name Charon, it is from the River Styx. It's the boatman. But again, I'll let you see the picture, but I will actually have an entire video dedicated to him and what he is, like what his whole spiel is. But that's basically it for my Meet the Cast, and I hope everyone has enjoyed this. I know this is probably running a little bit long, but there's just so much information I have of these characters, and I love them entirely. And I hope to do this for future series and for future books, because I'm going to be introducing more characters into this, and I just hope that everyone enjoys this. So again, my book Stand Up Fight Back is going to be available for pre-order until December 3rd. Please pick up your copy on Amazon. It is currently only available for ebook, but I will be doing the paperback sometime this coming, more than likely coming next year. But you will all be able to come along with me on that ride while we get that published. So again, my name is Jessica Giaquinto, and keep being fabulous, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!